Whenever something falls from grace or comes from the unmanifested into the manifested, the first thing that has to happen is a point. And that point does not exist in physical reality yet. Then something happens. For instance, a female is negative and has an egg which is negative or passive. The male is positive and has sperm which is active or positive. When they come together, there is a spark, and that spark creates that moment on both sides of the continuum, in the non-manifested and in the manifested. That is like igniting the fire. Okay? So it also includes that point, then the fire or the heat, and then on and on until it becomes a human being or a dog or a cat or a pig or a horse or whatever it is. So the Om represents that entire moment. That force, or that moment, is like a hole between dimensions. Like, not but like. Since all things desire to reunite with their opposite or that which is left behind, unmanifested, all things return or try to return to stasis in God. That's why you have death, or things wear out, fall apart, whatever. That is because the force that keeps that little pathway open always draws matter back toward the center. Now there's a movement on the outside we call centrifugal force. If you look at the earth, that balances between the force drawing everything back and maintaining its position in time and space. That is the entire activity of that point. Now if we talk about that point in another language, mathematics, we will say, well, let's first talk about that which can't be talked about mathematically. The form for that, for God, or that which is unmanifested, is always the triangle. Okay. But the triangle, and we have to talk about that first point of reality, that first point where matter becomes matter or non-matter becomes matter. We have to say that that is 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. You have a triangle, like so. Put another one in there like that. That gives you 1 in the center and 3. 1 here, and 1 here. This is the symbol for God resting within itself. This is the symbol for stasis. So it's 1 in 3 and 3 in 1. The 1 in 3 is the one right in the center. And the 3 in 1 is the one in the big one. At the moment of the ignition, the energy of life's force, the number changes from 1 in 3 and 3 in 1 to 3 plus 1, which is 4. Okay? because now you're talking about manifestation. You're talking about something out of grace, out of harmony. So that is the expression of that point, or that moment of coming into being. If you look at that another way, any point that comes into reality automatically is one or three in one. Okay, because the first line into reality represents length. You're talking about physical reality as a three-dimensional world. Okay, length. If you look at it from the end, you have width and height, okay, plus what is contained within. So 3 plus 1, 4. A square. This is the first step in three-dimensional reality. It all comes about like that. Notice, naturally, there is no two. Two is the number of division or of separation, and is an illusion. The number is 1, 3. 1 and 3, 3 and 1. Does that make sense? In order for it to have dimension, those three qualities: length, width, height. This is a point. Now that's a very loaded term. A point. Okay? Say, what's so loaded about a point? You're talking about a point coming to being in physical reality. Alright? Or you could call it a moment. That moment exists for the entirety of the length of the life of whatever it is. Every cell in your body is just like that. If you look at the little mitochondria in the cell act as a transformer of matter to energy. That moment is a transition point from matter to energy, and is energy to matter, because you take the body, the cell takes the energy and manifests more cell tissue. All right. So you could say that in your body are billions of points of transition. Does this make sense? Am I making sense? Okay. I know I'm making sense, but are you? But are you hearing the sense? Okay. Constantly, that point of transition is trying to pull everything back. It is as if I took a string and tied it to everything on this table and drilled a hole in the middle of the table, put the string through the hole, and pulled it. What you have to have is the counterbalance out here that keeps the crust rigid. with enough tension to balance. This is a point of health. It is a point of health in your body, of healthy being. Because you can have this pulling more than the crust is resisting, and you can still be alive, but you won't be very healthy. Okay. This crust is the lowest vibrational frequency in life, or the longest wavelength. Very long in your red spectrum if you're talking about light, or not, what do you call that red? Infrared. It's a very long wave pattern. That long wave pattern is responsible for planetoids or planets or things along the nature, that scope in nature. It is characterized by hardness, crystallization. It has consciousness, but it has the consciousness of mass. All of that exists in one octave. All crystalline matter is an octave. The different points, you could say, if we were talking about a musical scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So you'd be talking about various forms of rock, water, air, these things, various forms of those things, various vibrational frequencies within one octave. Make sense? The next octave is the octave of plants, and each point in between the different kinds of plants. Plants are characterized by having all the characteristics of the first octave, plus the ability to look for, take in food, and digest it. Now, plants, we all know they don't get up and roam around looking for things to eat, but that's why the root system looks like it does. It spreads out, searching for food. Okay. The third octave is characterized by the first two octaves, plus it has the ability, the animal, it is the animal, to think, to have emotions, and mobility. The fourth octave is man, the ordinary man, who has all of the other octaves and can manifest all of the other octaves, plus has the ability to reason, to think consciously, to figure it out, to think into the future or into the past. The next octave be characterized as the genius. This man, this is the vibratory frequency of this person is, he can take things and mold it. He can see into matter, but he manifests all of the below mentioned octaves of vibratory frequency. But yet, he still uses his intellect against matter. And when I say against it, I don't mean in opposition to, but up against it. Like my hand is up against the table to tell certain things about the table. But he uses his consciousness in this way. The next frequency, or the next step up, you would call the prophet, or has been called. This is a person whose intelligence does not operate against, but from within, and has intrinsic knowledge of things, knows things. And the last one is the God-man, or the man-God, or whatever. That is when holiness has happened, when wholeness has been reached, when the manifested and the unmanifested have come to rest within each other. These first levels of consciousness, with the exception of the last two, can be felt. Okay? You can experience them in that way. The last two octaves can only be being. In other words, you can only be it. You cannot experience it as different. Thought is of the intellectual octave and can be felt. Thought. So what we're talking about are finer vibrational frequencies for the last two. You can only be them. There are times when you will sit in meditation and you'll have an accident and you end up in this place where, wow, everything is just cool. You know, everything is smooth, man. You don't care. You can look at stuff and immediately know what it is. Something tells you about it. That is being at one of those octaves, or one of those frequencies. All human beings look alike in terms of their makeup. They can take blood from me, and if it's compatible, give it to you. And there are no male things in there saying, we can't go over there, she's a female. So, in that sense, all human beings look alike, with the exception of the two at the top. They look alike, and look like all other human beings, but there's a difference in the vibratory frequency of the body and of the nervous system. In order to handle these last octaves, the body has to be changed. Okay? We have to change it from the lowest or the longest vibratory frequency to the highest. Well, how are we going to do that? You can't start replacing you cell by cell. Well, let's look at it like this. It was already pretty good when you got here. What is the culprit? The culprit is the tension placed in the body by the way you perceive the world, which changes the vibratory frequency of your body. Because when you apply tension or stress, you squeeze the space from between the atoms and the molecules. They don't move as freely as they should because you're like this. When you begin to squeeze the space, the frequency is no longer like this, but like this. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. What we're talking about, when we talk about frequency, we are talking about the number of times, the frequency that an atom appears in this part of the universe, or in your level of reality. That means if this line represents physical reality here, beneath here is another reality. Say Joe reality, okay? Bam. It is in your area of reality. Through. Back. Through. All right. So the numbers of times that that atom, molecule, or whatever, the frequency, the amount of times that it appears in your universe. Now, you're not even concerned about the numbers of times it appears in Joe's universe, okay? That's Joe's problem, okay? And if you, when it comes through here, you're like this, well, instead of going, it goes a longer frequency. Then what happens? You begin to change the nature of the atoms and molecules. The first element, the first mass that you get on the sun is what? Hydrogen. Hydrogen is characterized by a nucleus and how many electrons? Okay, that's what makes it hydrogen, correct? If you add another electron, what do you have? Helium. Another one keeps you from being nuts. Come on. Lithium. Right. Look at the chart. All right. So you see that the amount of electrons in the shell around the nucleus and the amount of positive and negative charges in that nucleus determine the nature of the form. Whether it's helium, hydrogen, lithium, oxygen, xenon, radon, whatever. So, that determines the frequency, the numbers of times that it passes through this you call your reality. But when you act upon that from the outside, you change the frequency and thereby make a freak or a mutation out of it. And when you do this to a cell, it's called cancer. Or whatever else. People who live near large power lines have high numbers of cancer of the blood, leukemia.
I knew that one.
Flowing, electricity flowing, changing the vibratory frequency of the blood. The force. The life's force that enters at that point of entry or transmutation, in that center, when that force and the cell are in harmony, it is life. But when that force is gathered in such a way, like electricity, where it becomes greater than the cell, it becomes destructive. So you have to balance the life force, and you have to leave the tensions out so that they are in harmony with each other. The energy doesn't burn it up, nor does it pull it back to the center. So, this is why we've spent all these years talking about recognizing your thought facilities, because these things directly affect your body. Those thoughts directly affect your body. Not only your body, but your mind. Okay. So, we come to recognize them, and we come to doing our technique, which is relaxing and feeling the energy. Okay? So that you allow the natural frequency of your nervous system and all the cells to return to normal, so that they can now handle these higher vibrational frequencies. They pass through very quickly. I don't know that they are any shorter than the other ones, they just go faster. And they appear shorter because they're going faster. Okay? These are, shall we say, the original thoughts of, for lack of a better word, God. Manifestation on an earthly plane requires tremendous amounts of energy. Energy is the transition point. Focus, a sustaining things, focus, in order to manifest. Okay? That's what makes things happen. So you're using the same source. The energy from the source. Focus on it. That's why you have to become disciplined with your mind to make what happens happen. That is why this whole thing is a total and complete study. That's why you have to be at it all the time. It's like being in the school from hell. Okay, there is no time not to do your homework because you don't have any. This is all there is. This is it. So you don't just set aside an hour a day because it's too much happening. And you have to understand in some way. Now, I don't know how you're going to do it. In some way, you're going to have to understand all this stuff. In some way. But that's up to you. I don't know how you're going to do that. Or how that's going to go off in your head. how it's going to go off in your mind or in your being, because we are the same, but we are different. You know, you're the same, but you're different. And how you use your intelligence is up to you, or how you don't use your intelligence is up to you, or how you use your intelligence to understand how you don't use your intelligence is up to you. Any of those kinds of ways it can happen. You see what I'm trying to say? So I have to kind of give you the information and give you the technique and kind of leave you standing at the door and see what happens. Because this is the point now where no one can tell you how to do it. But you have to say, okay, now here's what you have to focus, and you have to be on it all the time. Because again, you're looking for that grain of sand on the Sahara. You're trying to do the impossible. So you have to always be looking. You can do it. It is not truly impossible. But for all practical purposes, I don't know. So, you had a question. But space is limited, because you can say space. You can define it. Well, it's like when I say nothing or no thing. You say, well, there's definitely something there.
Yeah.
Because it's there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at it this way, that this is the Aquarian age. It is the age of wave energy. And wave energy can penetrate anything, particularly the finer wave lengths. So, there is something on the other side of space that is no thing. Okay? Space is definable and finite.
The unmanifested is what this is already.
No, the unmanifested is what it is. You can't talk about that.
Okay.
The only thing you can say is that this space is a result of the unmanifested.
Okay.
And that's about it. Because anything you could say would be untrue. You can only talk about this side of the line. Because you notice I started talking about a point that is a transition point. I didn't say anything about just that it rests in itself. That's about it. Okay, and then you start talking about a point. Now you notice I started talking. Now I'm on this side of the line. On that side of the line, it rests in itself. That's about it, guys. That does not say, it is not. That says everything. Okay? But when you come on this side of the line, you can talk about definable things. But anything left in stasis, nothing you can say. Nothing. Something there? Yeah. What? I don't know. It is non-definable. I merely say yes to say it's not the end of existence on the other side of that line. but yet it is not existence at all. It is. Is what is. You see, so that's when you start getting into those problems and talking about. So you just say, let's talk about what's over here. Let's talk about getting you to the door and trying to get you to get the door open. Because that's all we can talk about. Yes, Dave.
A question about consciousness and breath. And something you had said earlier about creating balance. Balance the pull.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that?
To balance the pull, you have to release the tension. The other thing I would say about breath is that we are concerned about breathing in oxygen. But what you literally do is breathe in yourself. You literally breathe yourself into this body. And that's what animates the body. That's why breath is life. Not breath is equal to life. Breath is life. And so when you relax the tensions, that does not put pressure on the crust. Because when you got it pulling from the inside and the tension is putting pressure on the crust, it tends toward no life. So when you relax, it naturally creates the proper tension and the proper distance between the transition point or its center and the outer crust. And it's just natural. See, everything is as it should be if we stay out of it. We're always saying to other people, stay out of my life. Well, you have to stay out of your life. Otherwise, because it's like trying to see. Your eyes just see. You don't have to try to see. And when you start trying to see, you mess it up. It's like it's perfect. It's running. That old statement, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Allow it to be. Or we try to walk. You've seen people who try to walk, and a lot of people walk funny because they're trying to walk. They're really unsure, and they've had this uncertainty since they were little children. And they walk real strange instead of just allowing the flow of the walk to happen. See, we don't have to try and do it. When we try, then we mess it up. It's like breathing. You don't have to try to breathe. The moment you start trying to breathe, you get in trouble. You start, it's like when you're learning martial arts, you have to learn to breathe out. On extensions, people get into trouble then. Because so it's the natural part, the natural flow. And that's what does that. What keeps the natural balance. Sometimes your illnesses, notice I didn't say diseases, are built into your genetic coding. Because that's what you came here to experience and overcome. Spiritually, not necessarily physically. And the reason that I've encouraged you to look, in other words, so that you know or you don't know. That you find out it either is or it ain't. And if you find out it ain't, then you find out if it is, you go take your coffee and your stuff and sit down and and be happy. Yeah. You have to learn to explore what we've talked about today as a science. What we've talked about are laws governing physical reality. And if you start to play with these things and start to get to really know what a vibrational frequency feels like, and you begin to investigate it scientifically, this is where different kinds of sciences come from. And in understanding the basic law of matter, you can now change the law of matter. But you have to come into that upper group. Because the upper group, you see each one of those manifestations, mass, matter, plant, animal, man, each one can manifest those that are lower. This one can manifest all of them. And you learn, now raise your left hand. Gosh, you had to think about that, didn't you? Put it down. How did you do that? The force responsible for that is right here. It is called will. Will. Now, I want you to think about something. You've been doing this all your life. You never gave it any thought. How did I do that? Do you realize when you did that, you were just drafted? No. Drafted into the left-handed army. Yeah. Gravity holds the Sears Tower on the earth. How did you just overcome a force that powerful to just do that? How do you do that every day? So there is a force in opposition to that powerful force that is equally or more powerful than that force itself. We call it will. Gravity is the other side of that transition point, pulling everything back to God, pulling everything back toward the center. How do you think about that? You just went, yeah, no big deal. Little babies can do that. They lay around and overcome the most powerful force in creation. Now, there's something to be said. See, now is where we start to study. And no one can tell you where these things are or how you will come to grips with them. All I know is that if you take one step, it takes two. Ultimately, you'll come together. Ultimately. But you just haven't given it attention. You've just accepted this thing without question. There are human beings who can jump 7 feet off the earth, over 7 feet, almost 8 feet now. Just run up there and overcome the force of gravity. But now we do have a problem, because even though we can overcome it, we can't do it for long. Right. That's why they have the big cushions on the other side. Okay. Or why you can only do this for so long. After a while, you start thinking, wow, man, that hurts. Think about it. How to extend your will over time. how to extend your will over space. The same way you reach out and do that. How can I do that with that? Okay, he said will. No, that's not what I said. Is that what you did when you did that? So you have to figure out what you did. You have to figure out what you did. Because, see, I can talk about anything I want and I can do this. I don't have to think about it. I can just do that. I can do this. I don't have to think about it. How can you do that? So will is different than thought, isn't it? He's also different from Carlton. You never watched The Fresh Prince, Will Smith and Carlton? Okay. Yes, I have. New York does that to me. All right. Very important point here. Okay? Very important point here. About the sciences that have been in times past and the sciences that can be now. The sciences that have been in times past were just taken from the earth for a period of time. You'll see the same thing you see when you read about Moses and those guys in the Ark of the Covenant and all that. Parting Red Seas or Blue Seas or whatever. Bringing locusts and rain and that other stuff. The instrument used was the Ark of the Covenant. It's an instrument, a tool that operates on this very principle that we've been talking about. I've always said there's no magic. There is science. And how you understand the laws. You've been given a lot of clues today about stuff. About thought and about just all kinds of stuff. Will and all that. A lot of clues about things that you have to now give consideration to. I once talked to a man about curing illness until I realized that I was also talking to him about forces that were powerful enough to destroy this entire planet. And I stopped talking. The atomic bomb is the transition point. Is a transition. So where'd he go? He just vaporized. Matter went back through that point. Not even a puff of smoke. Gravitational field so great, not even a puff of smoke. Puff of smoke from bigger stuff, but not from that guy standing at ground zero. It's gone. Probably his consciousness was still hanging in the air thinking, did something happen? gone. Okay? That is the releasing of one atom, of an atom. The energy in an atom. With what I'm talking about. Listen to what I'm talking to you about creation. What happens when you go the other way? Think about it. So it's important that you involve yourself with this. There is no magic. There is only science. The laws are the laws that exist in God. See, sometimes I get not too comfortable with the word God, but I don't know how else to point you over there. And I get a little, I'm not comfortable with that word because there's so many connotations about it. So I'm just trying to say, you know, on the other side of that thing, that stuff we couldn't talk about, that laws that exist ad infinitum. That's what we're talking about now. So, talking about those laws, and we're also talking about how you are hooked into those laws, and how you can be hooked into anything, and to how you can bring those things into reality. How you should have dominion over the earth. The book knew what it was talking about. It's just men didn't know what they were talking about. Every octave below this human being here can manifest on the earth. You've heard me say everything vibrates at the frequency of the most powerful frequency around it. That's what happens when those people who live close to those giant power lines, that's what happens when their blood changes and they get leukemia. It starts to vibrate at the octave of the electricity rather than that of blood. So, yes.
How come it affects some and not others? I just kind of wonder.
Some are weaker in the here than others. Okay? You have to remember the thing that keeps the crust together depends on how weak it is by stress, tension, or other illnesses. That makes the difference. I said a long time back that in this time you're going to witness a lot of things. Look at the weird diseases that are. You got diseases that will deteriorate your inside and the blood just kind of flows out through your pores and all other openings. And you got a city, you got 600,000 people under quarantine. You got a bacteria that eats flesh. You've got all manner of things happening. Why does it happen to some and not to others? Depending on the state, their mental or physical condition. Remember I said, the words was, you will be known by the mark upon the forehead. Knowledge will save you. Knowledge will save you. Cooling out will save you because you will keep the balance. You will allow the body to maintain its own integrity. That's the difference. Why some and not others? Some maintain close to their integrity and some don't.
I was meditating last night and I was in this vibration and I could see something, so I know I wasn't in it as deep as I needed to be, but there was this something folding over and it was kind of lined up with the light, and I was trying to pull the light up like that, and as I pulled, I literally, my whole body just jumped straight up and I started to shake like this.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, the
Don't,
room was shaking.
yeah, don't try to pull it.
Okay.
Let it come.
Okay.
That's when you start shaking in there. That's a different vibrational frequency, and you have to remember that you want to allow things, because when you start dealing with forces like that, remember it can be too powerful. It's still a great force. It still invigorates you, but it invigorates you right on away from you. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You want to allow. See, everything is an allowing. Everything is very feminine. You allow. And when you allow, the change is gradual. And the vibration, see, in the beginning with some of these vibrations, at first, you'll feel them. And after a while, you won't feel them anymore. It's because you have relaxed into it, and it has become the norm. Okay, it's your norm now. All right. It is important, okay, to just be with stuff. Let it make the difference. Real important, particularly now. Particularly with what we're talking about now. You want your vibrational frequency to change. Let it do so. Don't. See, that's the thing about the tools like the Ark of the Covenant or the Staff of Life. It can burn your nervous system out like, I don't know, like plugging that thing into that, one of those giant transformers out there. And that's it. And there you might be a shell there, and you look like you're still here, but it'll be hard to talk to you and hard to get. You exist more at the plant level than. Yeah. Yeah. May I have just a tad more? So right now, if you're doing your techniques, remember I've given very specific techniques for you to do, like relaxing and allowing, so that you get to feel that bzzz, that vibration, and you get accustomed to it, because you're going to have to get accustomed to many vibrations. You're going to have to start to get accustomed to them, not only through this kind of touch, but through will. I'm giving you the senses technique, and I don't always tell you the full implications of what I give you. Because if I do that, then there's nothing for you to do. You can just come with me, my child. Want some candy, little girl? Whatever all that is. So there are many things, when I give them to you, you have to play with them and allow them to open you up. Because a part of the vibratory frequency, and remember I said this, your senses are vibratory receivers. Okay. So not only do you want to know what it's like here, but what it's like here at a distance, and what it's like here and here and here. So you're playing with your senses in relationship to vibratory frequency. And you get to know things about things. How do you think I know things about stuff? Yeah? Listen to what I've said to you today. How often have you heard that from anybody else? Lots of times? Thousands of times, right? It's because that's a message. The vibratory frequency is a message. It's like sound. When you look at it on the oscilloscope, what you see is vibrational frequency. But when you retranslate it, it comes out as words full of information. You see? So you have to learn to adjust your tuner. Ah, wood, yes. Okay. Stone, yeah. See, you have all these things in you. You have each of those octaves of vibrations are within your own being, so your body will vibrate at that level, right? That's how you get to know. You can only know from here. You can't know over there. But let's find out, is over there really over there? Or is over there over here? So you have to find that out. And in order to find that out, you have to play, yes.
I have a question about what I just said of the expansion. Expanded out like here. The core began to. Now, I've been playing with that. As I said, in consciousness, it's like a breath. And when I'm here, the center resonates at that space. I do that. I said, I can do, maybe I'll try that. And I tried it. I was here, and it said, let go of the body. And I mean, I literally was there for a moment, sitting there. I literally let go of what I felt was my physical. And I wanted to ask you a question about when you point, you say there. That you're pointing, because I have at times looked and saw that. So you were being literal when you say there.
Yeah. Yes, I'm being literal when I say there. One of the greatest obstacles that mankind has to overcome is that we really have this assumption that we end where the body ends. And it just isn't so. See, so you have to play in order to see. It's one of those things that makes you go, okay. You have to go, a lot. You can assume no thing. You cannot assume anything. Did you get it? Yeah, right. Right. Even that you are within the body. Let's find out. If you're in it and a prisoner in it, you'll find that out. If you're not, you'll find that out also. But let's not just accept it. Let's see. Let's see how it really works. You were given another key. You breathe in you. You got to work with that. See, breathe in me. What does that mean? That since what I breathe in was out here, then the wind's blowing around and stuff that was in China is now here, and wow. Oh, you mean I'm breathing me in from China sometimes? Sometimes just across that line. You're breathing you in from somewhere else too. God is omnipresent. Breathe deeply. Everywhere at the same time. Whoa. Breathe. See who you are. See where you are. Don't assume. There's all these implications that I want you to think about this stuff. And start to play with. What does it vibrate like? Move back from it a little bit. Think of, close your eyes. Put your tongue right behind your teeth. Think of aluminum. Can you taste it? Taste it? Why is that? Why is that? Don't answer it. Right now. Oh, well, that's because... Oh, shut up. Go find out. Don't accept any. Just check it out. See, this stuff. There's all this incredible stuff everywhere. I ain't got nothing to do. I'm bored. Okay, well, there's plenty to do. There is more to do than you can ever do. If you do it. Life just isn't worth living. It is to me. It's worth living until I die. Then dead is worth being. Okay? Because that's where you are. A vibration. What is it? What message does it bring? What does it say to us? About the nature of things. There are gases in your body, there's liquid, there's mass, there's electrical impulses. What does this mean? How much of your body is water? How much of it is mineral? How much of it is flesh? What does that mean in proportion to your health and your well-being? I don't know. You're important. Matter is important. But matter without the greatest consciousness is just satanic. That's all. But once you understand, wow, you lift matter to God. You lift Satan up to God. You lift Mass up to God. You lift Michael up to God, the archangel who fell from grace. That's pretty cool. It's better than being a car mechanic. Or a cook. I think that's pretty good stuff. But be aware, it took Moses how many years on the desert to get to be able to use one little tool? 40 years to get to understand how to use a vibratory frequency. And that tool had been on the earth at that time something like 6,000 years and was still humming. Was still humming. The energy supplies are here. All you gotta do is learn to use them. They're not out here. They're in here. They're right here. Right there. And that one thing. The Shroud of Turin has Jesus burned right into it. He was dead. Little mitochondria went, okay guys, time to wake up. He said it was done by probably some kind of radiation. Yeah. Little mitochondria kicking in and, oh, here I am. Yeah, wow. That's what life is, isn't it? Will. Think about will in connection with this. You say, well, that's not possible. That's not possible for you. You haven't learned it yet. You know. Can you perform heart surgery? Not yet, because you haven't learned it. So leave me alone. You know? You just have to learn. But to learn, you must first become aware that it's there, and then you must work with it. And you say, oh, that's how this is done. Think about will. Then stop thinking about it. Play with it. If you, there's an experiment done. This guy watched another person burn their hand accidentally. And the person, when the heat hit the hand automatically went up, hit a shelf that was loaded with about 50 pounds of stuff, and knocked it about 20 feet across a room. How could he do this? And he was such a little fellow. Can you do that again? Now you think about that using the back of your hand. Couldn't get it up. Why was that? Because the will said, get away from the fire. It didn't say, how far? So it hit with such a force that it threw the stuff across the room. When you start trying to extend your will, the first thing you are doing is paying attention to your arm. So where is your will? In your arm. Because that's what you're paying attention to. That's what you're paying attention to. it takes time to learn to pay attention to the will over there, over there. Okay?
No, we are using it all.
Yeah,
Doing all kinds of stuff that we're not aware of.
yeah. But you're using it unconsciously. And see, that's what's her name? Yeah, Cleo does. Unconsciously. Now the difference, we're supposed to be a whole octave above that. Yeah. All you have to do is begin to extend yourself. Just say, I'm going to lift that hat. And you got your attention right in your hand. Yeah. I'm going to touch you. Can you feel me touching you? My attention is not in my hand. My attention is on you. And it touches you. If you point the car and put gas in it, it'll go. You just point it. You point it when you drive. Do you look down here?
She does.
Or do you look down there? You don't look right over the hood. You look down there. You also tailgate. At 700 miles an hour. Yeah, when you drive, you look down the road. And the car goes with the road. Is it not a matter of will? If you look here, you'll hit something or you'll run off the road, right? You look where you want to go. Attention where you want to go. Make sense? Practice. Yes. Anger and hatred are very useful and wonderful things in their pure state. Because in their pure state, they are not anger and hatred, but the long wavelengths of energy that can be used to create many things. Long wavelengths create matter, doesn't it? Ting about it. Okay, I think that is going to be enough for today. The next one, we will continue from there. Now you should have 3 tapes now on this series. Study, study, study. You know, I hate to see a magician who got a C on his test. You know? Well, what kind of guru are you? I got a C on my guru test. No, get an A. You got to go in this stuff, and you got to listen to this stuff. I say, what is this crazy old man saying? What is he saying? What really is he saying? Some real crazy stuff. It's got to be crazy because no one else is saying it. Way out weird shit. Stuff. Okay. Okay. It's got to be absolutely nuts. Do you ever think about playing your instrument so that people can see what you play? Think about it. Think about it. So that they can see what you play. Dang. Imagine that. Use these tapes well, wisely. You gotta study. Take it, listen to it. Go do something. Go feel something. Experience. Radiation is a form of this vibration. Except the body can't quite use it. It excites those electrons and molecules, and that's why people who get radiation end up burnt looking.
Burnt looking. They are.
They are burned because they're so excited. The energy is being released and they cook. It's just like microwave. Yeah? If you could let your body relax and reach its natural vibration frequency, you would need that. But as you could let it move up the chain, the vibratory frequency of the radiation would not harm you in that way. Because your body can now take the excitement of the electrons. Anyway, more later. Thank you. Namaste.